Welcome to the Toilet Paper Diaries. Today we're going to be talking about the 8 battlegrounds of democracy. The 8 things, and it doesn't matter who's in power, who's challenging, always come up as the key battlegrounds that you need to win an election. All that and more in this episode of the Toilet Paper Diaries.
So once again, we're getting started with another crazy week. But before we go into all the craziness, I just also want to let everybody know that we just got the first 50,000 views on the Toilet Paper Diaries. Isn't that awesome?
Yay! 50,000 people sat there going, why are they still talking and why are they still in lockdown? That's great though, really exciting. And well done to you, Ernesto. And to you and me and our lack of Netflix, which is why we're still doing the show.
Exactly, and that's also very exciting. And also that reminds me of one big celebrity, which also, I mean, she actually was featured in one of our shows long time ago, Drew Barrymore. She started with her TV show, and I think we were correct. I mean, we predicted already that this was going to happen, that, you know, stars are not getting work in television. I mean, there's a Cubly, I think it is, that they're doing 10-minute series, but you know, the talk show hosts and whatever, some of them don't have shows and they're not getting work. So what do they do? They start their own show.
What's the name of that guy? John is married to Emily Blunt, who was in The Office, who was in the Jack Ryan movies. But Jack Ryan TV shows. He's a really nice guy. He's in that Quiet Place movie. He wrote it. John Krasinski.
Yeah.
Did that show. Do you remember what it's called?
Yeah, Some Good News.
Right, Some Good News. So he did 2 episodes, as far as I know, and they were both amazing episodes, really cool, which is easy if you're Rolodex as everybody in Hollywood, who you can call up and say, I'm really bored, should we Zoom together? So he did that show, and apparently got bought up by one of the big TV networks. And what's happened since then? I've not seen it. Have you?
No idea. But Drew, I think Drew has done a great job, because she started her show very similar to us in YouTube. And then she started going through local television. And I think it's great. We have this short clip where she is getting the show started with Adam Sandler. Let's have a look.
Hi, Lucy. Good morning. It's me, Henry. We are on, I think, about our 5,000th date together. It's been great. I want to catch you up. You have a thing called amnesia, and I am your husband. We have a daughter. She's about 40 now or something like that.
What?
I know, it's bananas, but I'm not done yet. It's 2020, and we're also in the middle of a pandemic, which is a terrible thing. Baseball games are now being played in front of cardboard people.
Sounds kind of like you're making this up.
Oh, yes. If the room you're in right now smells a bit like farts, that was you.
It does kind of smell like farts in here. Are you sure that wasn't you?
Okay, it doesn't matter. Either way, there is good stuff going on in the world, though. There's a company called Netflix that provides premium entertainment to people right in the comfort of their own home. They also pay me, so that's why we can have that house together. So to recap, 2020 is not great. Netflix is good, and you fart a lot in your sleep. True. In all seriousness, though, I want to just tell you this. I couldn't honestly be more excited for you. You have your own show now.
Hi, I'm Tom. Lucy's got her own show now?
Tom!
Yes, 10-second Tom. That's right.
That's great. Who's Lucy? And why is everyone outside wearing a mask?
Okay, Tom, that's enough. You gotta go now.
Okay.
You're gonna make people so happy every day, every time they see you. You are magic. The whole world feels it, and I'm lucky that I know you so well. I love you.
I can't think of any endeavor I'd ever want to do without you, Adam. So, thanks, and I love you.
Hi, I'm Tom.
Excellent. I love Drew Barrymore. There's something about Drew Barrymore that makes me happy because she starts off in E.T. and she's one of these child actresses and she seems like she never grew up, but there's something about her smile, and I'm going to sound like a real fanboy, but it just cracks me up. Did you ever see that movie where it's all about roller skating? And she's a roller skater where they're playing some kind of roller derby. Mm-hmm. And it was bonkers, but she's just brilliant in everything she does, whether it's Charlie's Angels or whatever. So the idea of watching her show on a regular basis works for me.
That's very cool. Yeah, I think it's just very important that everybody which is into speaking, everybody which is an expert or whatever, they consider doing a show as we are doing, because the results that we're seeing is just absolutely amazing. And I mean, I know that this is the beginning of something. I mean, you're telling me that you're getting a lot of new speaking gigs, and I'm also getting inquiries. I see that YouTube is also already eyeing what we are doing, people in LinkedIn everywhere. So definitely it's a great recommendation.
What we've got, Ernesto, is we've got like a press. On one side, you've got all your super celebrities who've been the darling of the media forever. On the other side, you've got all the wannabes, the podcasters who've been doing shows that not many people have been listening to on the most case. Some are good, some of them are terrible. But in the middle, you've got all the proper celebrities who need an agent and who need somebody to work the camera and who need them to put the microphone on. And they are in limbo. So a few of them will get their act together and start jumping into that void. But what's going to happen is, as no new movies get made, no new TV shows get made, a lot of the podcasters are going to start catching up with them as well. And so I think what you're going to find is some influencers will work out how to do TV, some won't. Some celebrities who have a sense of humor and have the ability to do the tech side will step up and they'll start getting their own show as well. But you'll end up with a massive amount of great quality, individually tailored shows. And I think that what that's going to do is really put in peril your established TV networks, because they'll all be on YouTube. Yeah. And if they're on YouTube, people won't bother turning on and paying subscription for cable TV or whatever it is, because if you and I want to say bad words, for instance, and I mean, I don't know any bad words, but we can say bad words on the show, we're not going to get taken off a network because we're not on a network. So bottoms to everybody, we can do what we want. And I think that that's an angle that's really going to start playing with. YouTube doesn't have that kind of coverage in that it stops you being a bad boy or a bad girl. And I think it's going to be a really interesting dilemma when we come out of everything, if we ever come out of it, to see who's survived, who's filled in the gap, and who's just disappeared into obscurity. If you need an audience around you and a film crew and actors, you are stuffed right now, my friend.
Yeah, it is really fantastic how things are going, and I definitely recommend that you look.
I can't hear, Ernesto, I can't hear you. Guys, will you just shut up? I can't hear my colleague Ernesto speak because of you wannabes trying to interrupt the show. Just stop talking. We may get you in, we may fit you in for an appearance, but you have to go through the same casting audition process as everybody else. So just stop.
Thank you, Dave. It's just impossible to do a show with all these people messing around. Anyway, let's just get now into the crazy week that we have been having. So it was just very weird. I mean, we just heard last week that Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, and before she was actually buried, there was already a justice selected to come into the Supreme Court of the United States. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was expecting Darth Vader to suddenly appear, and it wasn't. And Amy Coney Barrett seems sweet enough. She's clearly ahead of the game. She knows her stuff. She's very conservative, but that's what you're going to expect. But I didn't feel that it was anything like that really scared me. It was quite clear that the double standards were going to go on. And that's just politics in every country, in every party, in every politician. It's what you can get away with, not necessarily what the law says, because you bend it as you go. But you end up with somebody who's coming in with a big family, who's got a child of color, an adopted child of color, a child of determination, with special needs as well. And so you hope that what she brings to the table is a sensibility that many people don't feel you get from a more conservative judge. Yeah, she's very religious, And yes, she's very conservative. So there will be a lot of choices, and it really goes up to whether Roe versus Wade gets overturned. But as an initial thing, I was expecting to be scared. And I'm pretty neutral, and I don't really care. I don't live in the US, I live in Dubai. But it seemed okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I think she's a very nice person. I was also reading all her curriculum and all what she has done, and I think she's a great person. Now, obviously, this creates a few things that are a little bit difficult to deal with, because of course now there's 3 liberal judges in the Supreme Court, and now there's going to be 5. So that means that it's not going to be fair. And the reason why they are 9 is so that there's always an uneven one, so that they can take the whole thing. And as you were saying, I mean, right now, most of the challenges have to do with overturning Roe over Wade and all the other different things which are into conservatism. Now, if you do not know what Roe over Wade is, this is an important thing because it has to do with abortion. I mean, in the 1960s, John Roe was against Wade, which was the lawyer basically going over abortion, and that actually made abortion legal. And this is an important thing because, of course, and that's one of the battlegrounds that we're going to be covering in a moment. So I don't want to talk too much about it. But yeah, I think that was one of the crazy happenings. The other crazy happening of this week was this incredible story that we have never experienced anywhere and any time before. The fact that a standing president is actually making people doubtful that if he loses the election, he's going to be leaving the White House. Isn't that insane?
Well, we covered this on last week's show. We talked about how smoke and mirrors and changing the rules is a really smart way to play the game. What we didn't expect is to actually stop playing the game whatsoever and just say, there is no game. I'm staying in. Goodbye. Take all your stuff home. We're already sorted out. I really wonder where this is leading, because there's lots of things that are just so crazy about saying, regardless of what's coming in. And now you see what Trump's doing is he's basically hedging his bets so the Electoral College wins regardless of the popular vote, which clearly comes to let him say that he's not going to win the popular vote. But I just wonder, well, if it's like throughout the entire time, who watches the watchman? Who's in charge of whoever's in charge? And we don't know what the case is here because nobody's in charge of the most powerful person on the planet. So if he decides to dig in deep and he gets the military to back him or the police to back him, who's going to go against that? Even if the Constitution says otherwise. And I worry about it for the people living in the United States, and it might be the case of Davey being ridiculous, but from what I see right now, it's not that ridiculous.
No. Well, there's a few things. By the way, we got some amazing comments on last week's show, and I recommend you to see it. So if you want, I mean, somewhere here, I do not know exactly where, but you're going to be seeing a link so that you can actually see last week's episode where we were talking about content and context. And this is one of those things which I think we really need to put into context, because Bill Maher has been saying for months and possibly years that there's going to be a point where Trump, if he gets to lose, he's not going to be really accepting that he lost.
I don't see him leaving willingly. I don't see him leaving under any condition, including people knocking on the door with guns. But he'd be Scarface. I just don't see this man giving it up.
And right now we got the Vice President Biden. We got also Bernie Sanders.
This is an outrage, and it's an issue that has to be dealt with. A president of the United States saying, I cannot lose this election. If I win, great. If I lose, it's rigged.
We got a number of different people mentioning what they were going to do in case this was the Republicans didn't win, and he didn't really want to lose. He really wanted to get out of the White House. Now, on the 20th Amendment, it says that on January 20th, at 11:59 with 59 seconds, his tenure finishes. But now the question is, what will happen if he's still inside of the White House after that time? And this is where I am incredibly, incredibly worried, because right now his son, DJ TJ, as he's normally well known for, he actually made a call to arms. I mean, are we living in crazy times? Calling Republicans to actually get ready if they get the election stolen. Let's have a look at this video.
The radical left are laying the groundwork to steal this election from my father, President Donald Trump. They are planting stories that President Trump will have a landslide lead on election night, but will lose when they finish counting the mail-in ballots. Their plan is to add millions of fraudulent ballots that can cancel your vote and overturn the election. We cannot let that happen. We need every able-bodied man, woman to join Army for Trump's election security operation at defendyourballot.com. We need you to help us watch them, not just on election day, but also during early voting and at the counting boards. President Trump is going to win. Don't let them steal it. Go to defendyourballot.com and enlist today.
Well, I can't say I'm so surprised, and it just feels like some kind of, one of my favorite movies is Last of the Mohicans, taking us back to the Civil War, when you've got all the different sides all fighting for plots of land, and with Daniel Day-Lewis looking incredible in that movie, and it just feels like that. Now, what really freaks me about this whole thing is the fact that you've got peace around the world. I mean, Dubai, UAE, and Israel have just decided, you know what, let's just do business together. So the rest of the world is going, you know what, we can get on. This is actually a nice time. COVID's out there, that's not nice, but the rest of it's really good. And the one place seen as the world's greatest democracy is going, right, let's get the guns out. Let's start a battle between us for no reason. We've already got a system, but let's dispute it anyway. And I worry about it for all the right reasons of what could happen. And I wonder, are there any grown-ups in the room who want to say, right, kids, go and stand in a corner, facing the wall, don't turn around, put this beer mat against your head in the corner. If it falls on the floor, you get a smack bottom and detention. I'm telling you now.
Yeah, it's just absolutely insane. So we do not, you see, I mean, every single week is just getting crazier and crazier. We also have the Florida reverted the social distancing mandate. What do you think of that? So right now, Florida, which is one of the most affected states, says, you know what, no problem. I mean, let's just forget about the whole thing. It was nothing.
Well, the problem with social distancing is that and the masks are the only things we have as evidence that are going to keep us alive. Don't go close to anybody who can pass you the virus. If you do have to go close to them, cover your face so they can't breathe it on you. That's it. We don't have anything else yet that can cover it. So to then turn around and say, no, let's just have a bit of a party going on, it's...
You know what my very favorite meme that I have seen recently in social media is all these guys complaining about the mask and we have to wear a bra every day. All the women saying that.
Tell you what, if I have to stay in lockdown much longer, I'll be wearing a bra as well every day. Kind of feels comfy actually, and it's got great support, so I'm not knocking.
Yeah, that might be another of the crazy things. So yeah, those are the crazy things. Do you have any other crazy things that happened on this week, Dave?
Oh, I was just going to say how much that Amy Coney Barrett reminds me of Laura Ingalls from one of my favorite shows of all time, Little House on the Prairie. Do you remember that bit at the beginning of it, where it was at the beginning where they all roll down the hill, and it's all really funny and jokey and so on? If this was nowadays, somebody would get sued for that. In fact, to be honest with you, the camera crew and the producer and the director would be in jail for child endangerment for showing a clip like that. Ridiculous. But every single week you get the moral of the story. And there's a couple of films like that. There's Little House on the Prairie, there's The Waltons, and I'm trying to remember what else there was. But they're all Pollyanna. Well, there you go. So I was taking a Mickey, but I wish her the very best. If she gets through, then great. Amy Coney Barrett. Right. One of the things is the political debates have just been on, and there's loads and loads I want to say, but I don't really want to say it until I've digested it properly.
Yeah,
I think it's very interesting.
That's correct. This happened last night, so let's just keep that. Possibly we'll do a special edition of the Toilet Paper Diaries about it. Possibly we'll include it next time. We'll just need a little bit of time to process what happened yesterday.
Well, the thing is, Ernesto, when you look at it, there's so many areas to discuss. And I think that's what we really should jump into now, because it doesn't matter whether you're Biden, it doesn't matter whether you're Trump, it's all about 8 different backgrounds. These are battlegrounds that come up year after year, election after election, since time began. And that's ultimately what's going to happen here. Should we take a deep dive into these?
Absolutely. Here's a very good recommendation because, it's what I think it's crazy. Once again, putting things into context and content. We cannot, there's several things that I side with the Republicans, several things that I side with the Democrats, several things that I hate about the Republicans, and several things that I hate about the Democrats. So what is my way of thinking? And this is where I found it very interesting. There's a website that is called I Side With. And in I Side With, you can just go there and you will be answering a quiz and they will be telling you where you are at. And I think this is very important because, of course, we cannot just say, well, I am liberal or conservative, because we also have authoritarian and we also have libertarian, which is, 2 other different aspects. So understanding what's going on in politics, not only in the United States, but also around the world, it's incredibly important. So what we're going to be covering right now, more than anything, it is the 2 different ways of thinking. So who do we have, Dave? We have the liberals, which in this case would be who?
Well, the liberals in this case are going to be all the people who are the Democrats, effectively. So in the UK, they'll be seen as Labour. In America, they're seen as Democrats. And all the people who want to change the way that you look at stuff. So they want it to be more for everybody's betterment, and they want it to be paid for by the state, and they want it to be legislated to make sure that certain things are controlled for the better of everybody. So it doesn't matter whether you're at the top of the food chain, bottom of the food chain, it's the same. And that means that if you are successful and you are making money, then you should be taxed to pay for the people who are not so good at doing what they do. But at the same time, if the people who are not so good at doing what they do don't care and they're just taking money from the state, then you're going to rightly feel upset that people are freeloading, whereas you've spent your entire life working your backside off to get to a certain level. So that's the kind of battleground that your liberals and Democrats would be facing and wanting to hold on to. On the other side, you've got the conservatives who generally believe that it should be down to the individual. Your ability to make a choice, your ability to look after individuals, to have your own guns, to protect your property, to be arguing about this because it matters, but also to find a way to make things happen the way that you want them to. Now, in a perfect world, both sides have huge merit, but not if you start with a huge amount of inequality before you begin. So, for instance, if you start off rich, of course, you're going to want to protect it. You're not going to give it to anybody else who's not making money, because then you lose a ton of money that you've inherited from your family. Whereas if you start off poor, you're going to want it to be more of a level playing field, because you never were allowed to catch up on the people who clearly don't care whether it's a coronavirus or not, because they've got more money than they need to be able to take care of it. The weird thing is that when you start looking at the 8 different battlegrounds that this particular election will be fought on, it's going to be incredible to see what side you and I actually buy into, because we're very similar. We've been brothers for like 20 plus years. But I find myself with a little bit of leaning there, understanding over there, and wanting to make my choices as they come. It might be the same. Should we go through the different categories first?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, once again, just before we get into that, we have, in one side, we have the liberals, which are the Democrats. In the other side, we have the conservatives, which are the Republicans. And now this is where it becomes very confusing when it goes authoritarian and libertarian. So, people that want to get involved into that. So that is the spectrum that you have to use. Now, what are the 8 battlegrounds of the 8 categories? So if you want, we say 1 and 1, Dave. First, and I think is one of the ones that it takes a lot of power for some reason, which I do not understand, is abortion. abortion is one of those that they take, it's one of those battlefields. What is the second one, Dave?
Next one's affirmative action and making a choice on what happens with the social spectrum, making it so people can be balanced and people can work their way up, but the state makes it so it's legislated that everybody gets treated equally, and regardless, it's enforced by the law to be equal.
Next battleground is going to be guns. This one, I mean, in some other countries, it will not be even part of the agenda, but here in the United States, it's an incredibly important one.
Well, that's the case. I mean, guns, you've got the fact that some people say you should have gun control, and some people say you never know when it's going to turn into a war. You need as many guns as you possibly can have.
Exactly.
I'm from the UK where nobody's got guns. Even the police don't generally carry guns. And so the amount of shootings is, not many. Makes a big difference, trust me. Next up is crime, and whether or not the rights are there for the defendants, or whether the tougher thing. So, for instance, if you're liberal, then you're looking after the defendant's rights. Regardless of what's happened, there should be the ability to make somebody done, but also rehab. But also, all the money that goes into policing should be thrown into making a better world so the policing doesn't have to happen. Whereas if you're on the conservative side, you say make it tougher, make the laws tougher, get the police out there, and let them clamp down heavier on the law breakers. So those are the two different sides. What's next?
So we covered now the social aspect, and now I think it's important that we go into the economic aspect. So into the economic aspect, the first battleground is going to be taxes, which right now I think is very interesting because we were reading in the New York Times that the sitting president suddenly got their tax returns out, and apparently they are nothing like what he says they are.
Well, here's the thing, and it's really interesting to see, because what you have is you've got the liberals saying, yeah, you should tax the rich. You've got the conservatives saying basically whatever Trump does is great because he's changing the game and getting rid of all the rot. But then you've got the tax returns of Trump being made public, saying he's never paid any. He's saying I'm paying tons. The evidence says he's not paying at all.
$750 in taxes.
$750, which is less than a per person's rent. So he's just getting away with it by saying basically that he doesn't make any money. Now, the thing is, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. If he doesn't pay tax, he doesn't care about contributing to his part of society. And that will be the thing that the Democrats pick up on. So, for instance, in 2012, Trump turned around and had to go to Obama for the fact that he only paid 20.5% of his earnings as tax. He said, what's all that? You can't talk it unless you actually do walk it as well. You should be paying a load more. But in that year, he paid, I don't even think he paid during that year himself. So you've got that kind of thing. But at the same time, you're going to have people turn around and say, no, but he's smart. If he can work it so he doesn't have to pay, then that's really good. We should take a leaf out of that book, and that's how it should be played. Yeah. The challenge is he shouldn't be allowed to if he's the president of the United States of America. He is the one person that everybody watches. Because do you know what you can go to prison for? If you don't pay $1,000 in your tax bill, you can be incarcerated for that. Now, it's very likely that Trump's already existing bill, according to what New York Times is saying, is about $400 million. Now, if he loses his case when it comes to actually looking at the tax things and he gets fined on it, he'll get another 100. So that means he's going to have $500 million in debt.
Yeah,
he's got to pay. If you break it all down, then the money from The Apprentice helped him. The money from his properties was offset to make him take a loss. And I think what it came down to, which is incredibly interesting, is that he wanted to be able to offset his debts by running for president, but I don't think he intended to get president. He just wanted to boost his notoriety and get more people to buy into him as a figure. As soon as he's in president, he's in stuck. So everybody gets to see what really happened. And I don't think he really wanted that, because it makes no sense to run to expose yourself unless you're hoping you can do enough foreign deals to be able to pay off your debts And then you've got the argument about he's using America as a customer base.
Yeah.
So that's the arguments. And again, we try and stay neutral. This is what I'm reading in the New York Times. That's their arguments. But you've got the other side defending Trump, saying ultimately it doesn't matter what's happening in his personal life. Let's look at his record for the American people.
Yeah. And this is exactly, once again, context and content. Once again, for us, that is what you need to figure out. I mean, if you see that he's not paying taxes, that he's not doing all these kinds of things, that's a fact. This is just something which is already there. How is it going to be interpreted by those people which are, the very conservative ones, all these kind of things? And it's just insane what's going to be happening. And this is, of course, something for us to cover. But let's just don't get out of topic, and let's just go into the next category.
Let's get out of topic, but no, let's finish.
Well, the thing is, I mean, we are in taxes, but we want to talk about what's happening with the...
We couldn't talk about taxes without talking about Trump's taxes. That's 100% true. But other battleground is about spending. What do you spend the money on when you get the taxes in? Do you spend it on social programs to make America a better place, or your country a better place, to balance it up, to put a safety net on the people, to educate them as well so that the rich are balanced up and anybody can make it to a higher level? That's what the liberals and Democrats would say. Or do you say, no, don't spend it. Those people who have it should look after it, and everybody else should find their own way to the top. But you can spend on military because we've got to protect the country. Those are the two battlegrounds for spending. Next up,
it's going to be regulation, which some people say, well, we're in favor of making sure that everything is done correctly and this is all regulated. And the conservatives, on the other hand, are pretty much against having the regulation. So that is basically the seventh battleground, which takes us to the eighth battleground.
Regulation is you can argue on a hypothetical situation when there's no war going on, whether you need to have that whether you need to have things that are put in and things that are not put in. But when you've got a virus, you've got a choice. Do we regulate that people have to stay safe and keep other people safe, or do we not regulate? Because it's the greater good, not the personal freedoms, that surely should be deciding what happens in a country. And being based in Dubai, the government don't mess about. But say, if you have a party in your house or in a restaurant, when we've told you can't, you're going to prison because you're endangering other people. And that's going to cost us a fortune to look after and cost you a fortune. So everybody is involved in it. We're going to make an example of you. And that's what we did recently. And I got to say, I buy into that, because anybody who's stupid enough to risk other people's lives just because they want to have a bit of a jolly, that's what happens. My parents are all, they live in Leeds, and Leeds is back down in lockdown in the UK because of young people saying, we're over it now, let's go and have a party. And suddenly the spike has gone right up again, and the government have forced people to get back to 6 people at a time in any kind of gathering.
Exactly.
So that leaves us to the final point, which is military. Those arguing that you should just have a basic military because the battleground is not even a war anymore. It's more about the cybersecurity and the social media and the policies and the economics and the trade wars. And there's lots of different ways to fight without picking up a gun. Whereas and that's the liberal way of looking at it. The conservatives are more about, no, you've got to make sure the world knows that but you are the strongest force on the planet because it's a huge deterrent against people who want to mess with your country. Now, here's the thing for Ernesto. I mean, you and I are very similar, and we hardly ever fall out about stuff. But when I look at that long list, I find myself as a person who is in lockdown, having to find a way to feed my family, regardless of everything. There's no job, no safety net, no handouts. I'm probably center-right in my politics. So I would actually be probably Republican conservative type. In the fact, I believe that you should do your own thing, but I also believe you should be paying money for the people who can't do it themselves. And should make their way much easier because you've got plenty of it. So hand it out.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more of a social democrat. More than anything, I tend to agree a lot more with the Democrats, with the liberals. So let's go over each and every one of the topics that you were saying, well, on this election specifically, but in reality, they have been since the times of of Kennedy, or possibly even further. This has been the 8 specific battlegrounds that every single candidate here to become president has to convince the most people so that they vote for him or her. So we started with abortion. So the liberals are going to be pro-choice, which means, government, don't mess around with my body. I take the decisions with my body. And then we have the conservatives, which are pro-life. No, abortion is not correct. Now, where do you stand in that? In my eyes, for example, I would say, well, I understand that you shouldn't have an abortion just because you made a mistake and you didn't take the morning after pill. But I think if there was a rape, or there was the kid have issues or whatever it is, why make a kid suffer because of that? So that is one of those dilemmas that you actually get yourself in choosing that specific option. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel kind of the same way, Ernesto. I mean, I think that bringing a child into the world, as you and I have done, is a huge undertaking. Some people can't do it. Do you want to then hand them over to abortion? Not to abortion, to adoption services, where somebody else gets to bring up a kid that you've dropped into the world. Now, a lot of those cases are happy cases, so somebody gets a child that they couldn't make themselves, but also in many cases, it's a broken life for an unwanted child who has to grow up like that, especially if it was a rape case or it was an incest case. Should that be allowed? Then you're going to have the fact that you've got to add into it the modern technology. With the ability of nanotechnology, we can start designing the actual genetics of kids. So if somebody has a birth defect, before they actually have the birth defect, you can alter it at a genetic level so the baby comes out differently. So is that interfering? Is that same as abortion? Is that making it really difficult? And which side would that fall onto? Who would support that argument? I don't know. I really don't know
either. That's one of those tough things to think about. But then we go into the next one, affirmative action. So possibly you can give us an understanding on that one a little bit better, Dave.
Okay, so affirmative action, that's to do with social stuff. And I can jump straight in there with the race issue, looking at whether it's right or wrong to interfere in systemic racism. Now, the conservatives would say, no, let it all play out. It's fine. It will work itself out. I can tell you with firsthand knowledge, the amount of times that I've been dealt with by racism that's very subtle, with a little r, not a big R, where it's very subtle, but it makes a big difference. This racism is enough for me to have left my home country. And you know how proud I am to be a Brit. I couldn't live in Britain in the 90s because there's so much in the system that was never going to get me the job I wanted. I came to Dubai, which is a brown country where all nationalities, all colors are welcome. And within 2 years, I was running my own radio station. So it really does make a huge difference. As for affirmative action, 100%, everyone should be treated equal, and the system should be there to prosecute anybody who isn't treating people equal. And you should educate everybody that everyone is equal and they all deserve a fair crack of the whip. The bottom line is in 40 years, there'll be more brown people than anything else. I know some people have a big fear of that. For me, the more we integrate, the better. I understand why some people don't like it, but these are the same people who maybe have an argument about many of things I don't agree with. But I also agree with many things that they do like. So I don't know. Where do you stand on that?
So the whole point is basically, for example, I see it in here. I mean, if you should race be a qualifier? Like if you're a minority here, I mean, if you're brown or if you're Asian or you're whatever, should you be getting any privileges, or you should be getting any possibilities of getting a scholarship or whatever it is, or not? And I mean, I would say I am in favor that the minorities do get some more support, because there's too much white privilege. And this is where you stand. Well, where do you actually fit on that one? And it's hard. I mean, it's hard for me because, of course, I come from, I am a minority. However, I'm white. And I don't get that discriminated in many different ways. But I can feel it because, of course, it's the people I know in how they're treated. So definitely I am in favor. even though I know that in the conservative side, they are very much against.
So let's move on then to guns. So you got two sides, those who want guns to be controlled and those who believe that you should have as many guns as possible to defend your ranch. I don't know what ranch we're talking about, but that's pretty much how it all runs. And for me, it's very simple. If there were no guns and only the police had guns, then you'd have a lot less violence, period. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get it. I'm British, so I don't get the gun thing at all unless I'm watching a movie, in which case everybody gets shot.
That's one of the most incredible lobbies here in the United States. I mean, the NRA, it's just insane. But I was saying, you know what is the country per capita that has the most guns in the world? It's not the United States, it's Switzerland. However, they have gun control. So here's the whole issue. It's not about not having guns, it's about having the guns controlled. It's not about getting yourself, you know, the AK-47 and with multiple loaders or whatever they are. I don't even know what the names are. I mean, it's just having control. In Switzerland, there's full control, and every citizen, and I'm meaning every single citizen, is armed. That's fine with me. So I am pro-gun control, and I say it's fine to have the rights. So where do I stand? I don't know.
Well, I think what you have to look at is the amount of people that get shot in Switzerland by drunken shooters, or by disgruntled shooters, by mentally challenged shooters, and the answer is almost zero. So somewhere in there is an argument, the same as somewhere in there is an argument that if you want people to take care of themselves so you don't have to worry about them, give them guns and booze and drugs and let them sort themselves out. That's just sod's law, and the rest of it's down to Darwin. All right, next is exactly that point, crime. Now, here's the thing, saying about social issues, do you defend the defendants' rights, or do you make it tougher for the police? Now, this is a massive, challenging area, because let's take cannabis, for example. Cannabis and marijuana are now legal in, to my knowledge, most of America, if not all of America.
No, not all.
Well, it's not all. So a lot of America has got cannabis laws. So how many people are in prison right now for dealing cannabis and marijuana? A ton of them. Mm-hmm. Where now you're sitting around saying, okay, it wasn't a proper crime, we should just let you out because you can buy them in the shops. So therefore, what is the crime? Now, I'm not saying crime isn't something you should come down on. You should do. But something that Trevor Noah said was fascinating about this. He said, when you create a crime, and he talked about riots and people smashing windows and setting cars on fire, you got to think about the social contract. The social contract is, doesn't matter what citizen you are equal under the eyes of the law. And if you work really hard, you should be able to buy anything if you're able to afford it because you've worked your way up to the top. Now, what he was saying was when people feel the social contract, which is down to the citizen to believe that money is important and stealing isn't, and the authorities to say that we will give you a chance to earn money and get all this stuff. When you've got this angle where they're saying that the police are not allowing that to be a reality, then you end up with a social contract being broken, and then you get the rioting and setting crazy stuff on fire. Now, I'm not for violence in any way, shape, or form, but I get why that would be an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And now let's just move on to the taxes, which of course we have already mentioned a little bit, so possibly we can keep this one short. The liberals will say, yeah, it's okay. Huh?
Watch this space.
Exactly. So the liberals say, well, you know, it's okay, especially to tax the rich. And the conservatives will say, no, I don't think it's a good idea to tax the rich. I would like to pay as little taxes as possible.
Well, it's down to what kind of level you want a country to be successful in. And you got to take the coronavirus as something that holds up a mirror to every country on the planet. And if you look at the countries that have done best, the countries that have done best generally have the government stepping in with healthcare and laws to make sure that everybody gets across the finishing line in one piece. So you've got South Korea, that says, right, guys, we're in lockdown. I've experienced it before. And we said, we're going to test everybody and we're going to check everybody so we know exactly what's going to happen next. And you've got Scandinavian countries that have such huge amounts of money that something like 50% taxes that go into healthcare and everything. People are not worried about catching coronavirus. Nobody wants to catch it. But at the same time, they know there'll be a hospital bed. They know it's not going to cost them anything. I mean, no, the government will look after them. Spain is brilliant for that as well, by the way. Spain, Hong Kong, and Singapore are the 3 best countries in the world to get ill if you're a citizen.
Yeah, well, in the Netherlands also. I mean, this is another great thing. And this is exactly where I started thinking, well, you know what? When I moved to the Netherlands, I thought it was a joke. But they told me, well, here in the Netherlands, this is exactly what they told me, so that you can see how graphic it was. Here in the Netherlands, from January to June, you work for the Queen. And it first didn't really make too much sense to me. But that means that basically they were taking 50% tax of all my money. And I said, my goodness, that's insane. Now, I didn't really, I thought that it was terrible because, of course, I had the mentality of how it was here in the States. I had the mentality of how everything was in Mexico. But then I started understanding, my goodness, I mean, everything works perfectly. I don't have to worry about anything. If I go, I mean, I just go to the hospital and they give me a whatever. I mean, if I have an operation, whatever, I don't have to pay. Everything is already there included. It works amazingly. So when I hear Bernie Sanders talking about why we have to have something like they have in Holland, or they have in Norway, they have in Sweden, or they have in Finland, I say, yes, this country definitely needs it. So, you know, once again, this is why having a little bit of a broader scope and a better perspective will help people here in the United States understand a lot better what it is. Now, is it worth that they're going to be taking that amount of money in my taxes? I don't know, but I don't have any fear of what can happen to me because I know that I am well protected by the government. So I do not know if that's a good thing or if that's a bad thing or a good thing.
Well, I think the only time you can say it's a good thing or a bad thing is when you need it. If it's there when you need it, then it's obviously a good thing. And I think that we're going to see a massive change across the board, especially in healthcare, because telemedicine is going to be a fascinating game changer. When you don't go to a doctor's clinic, it means you don't get charged a fortune for walking in the building. It means you can do it all on Zoom and the doctor's there. But here's the thing that I find so fascinating. If you're going to go to the doctor, and by doing it on Zoom, the way that we're talking with Dubai and Houston right now, and what nationalities predominantly do you have at the top of the food chain in tech, as well as doctors and so on? Indians. Now, I'm not having a go at Indians. I've got loads of friends. In fact, probably most of my friends are Indians. But in India, it's the cheapest healthcare anywhere. You can't even get insurance. Why? Because you can walk into like a supermarket. Everywhere you go, there's a doctor who will look after you on the spot, super cheap, pay it out your wallet, walk out, didn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
You only need insurance for really big operations. The rest of it is super cheap. Now, here's the point. If you go down the route of telehealth, you're also going to go down the route of call centers. Now, banks changed years ago to have call centers based in India, where staff were trained to have an English accent or an American accent, and they're trained to be able to talk about the town like they know it, so they can tell you where to go, but they're based in India. That's going to happen with telehealth. Right now, we've seen such an influx of smart doctors going into every country around the world, Indian guys who are doing really well, having a great practice. But there's a ton, about 1 million doctors at least back in India, who'll say, oh, telehealth, call centers, let's look after people like that. And I think that's really going to change the game. So what I think the end result is, if you're a doctor in the US and you're sitting pretty going, you know what, we'll be okay. This mixture of insurance, hospital, fees, we're going to be all right. You are now up against the lowest common denominator of price, which will be the same doctors, unregulated or regulated over in India. Right now, if you go to places like Sweden, you don't even go to the doctors. You can turn around and go on Zoom or have an app, and they'll decide what's wrong, and they'll do it, and you won't need to go anywhere. They'll send you a prescription you can pick up from a supermarket, or they'll send it to your house in half an hour. If your dog's ill, the vet can have a look at your dog, see the breed, say, yeah, I think it's this, and they can send you straight away some stuff.
That's exactly what happened to us yesterday. We had a problem with Boris, our dog, and we had a friend, which is a vet in Spain, actually taking care of that. Cool. Let's just move on to spending, which I think it's our next.
Spending. I thought we'd gone for regulation.
Oh, sorry. Regulation, yes.
So regulation, there we go, about whether you should make sure that people pay or they don't pay. And last on the list is military. Now, I don't want a war. Nobody wants a war. I don't want a war because I don't want to see people get killed. But wars are one of the best business models that you could ever have. And they're perfect for a government that really wants to make everybody have to sit up and beg. You start a war with another country and suddenly anybody who doesn't like it is unpatriotic. What you do is you get rid of all the old machinery, all the old guns, all the old tanks, all the old planes. You have a carte blanche to write out a check to get new stuff put in and all the lucrative contracts that comes with that. You've got a brand new military and you made a lot of money off the top of it. And therefore, war makes sense as a business model. Strange, but unfortunate. So we could go on about weapons of mass destruction. We could go on about the recent invasions of the Middle East. But being based in the Middle East, I can see the impact it's had on people's opinions of Britain and America, which used to be super high, now going, right, okay, all right. And to be honest with you, when you and I watch movies like Star Wars or, well, for me, the Avengers and so on, there's a load of countries that see the West as being Darth Vader and the Empire, and the plucky little Luke Skywalker with his lightsaber up against everybody is them.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very weird, and I think it is sad to see how it is. But there are issues. Those are the 8 issues that we have. They has been going on for a number of years. Now, here's the important thing, and I think this is the reason why Dave and I thought it would be a very good idea to actually be addressing this here on the Toilet Paper Diaries. I mean, we can disagree, and we can agree to disagree, and that you can have your options, and I can have my different ways of points of thinking and whatever. But the important thing is we can get along. I mean, it's not about being enemies. And this is what it has boiled down to. I mean, at the very end, this is what we're seeing. We're seeing people becoming enemies. Oh my goodness, you're a Republican. I cannot talk to you. You're an asshole. You're a horrible person. I don't want to talk to you. You say, come on. I mean, we have different ways of thinking, but at the end of the day, we can sit down and have a beer, which is exactly what happens in the Netherlands. I mean, in the Netherlands, you can have the most heated debate and then afterwards say, okay, well, now let's just forget about it and let's go have a beer. And that's exactly the kind of attitude we need to have. We don't have to get DJ TJ to say, well, you know, I want everybody to get in arms, because what happens is that there's so many people that they're going to take everything seriously. And there's so many people that have arms. If you see some of the videos from some of the Trump supporters, which are really getting in arms and doing all these things, that is not good for anybody. And that's what we need to be very, very careful of. Don't you agree, Dave?
You said something really important there. You always say stuff that's really important, but one thing that really hit me about what you said about Holland. In Holland, you can have these really heated arguments, but afterwards you turn around and say, look, it doesn't matter. It's your round next. You get the beer in. Why can you do that? Because you have the luxury of knowing that whether you're on the right or the center or the left, you've got healthcare. Mm-hmm. You've got a safety net that will guarantee you're going to be okay anyway. So you can have hypothetical arguments. If you haven't got that, then every single argument really is valid, because it could be life or death depending on who gets voted in.
Yeah. Dave, it's been super, super interesting conversation. And we would like you guys to let us know what you think. Give us some comments here, give us some likes, give us some dislikes. Because, you know, I just recently found that actually getting some dislikes from people actually help whatever show you're having. Because, of course, it's not that you have to like the quality of the video, but you're disliking what we are saying or liking what we are saying. And that is just starting the conversation. So give us a like, give us a dislike, subscribe to us. Make sure that you keep on watching the Toilet Paper Diaries. But guess what? We are out of time. It's amazing how fast these shows go.
flies past, but that's because we're having fun, and hopefully everybody does as well. And for the first time ever, we've kind of revealed our own political allegiances. And you know what? You're slightly left, I'm slightly right, but we meet in the middle, and neither of us buys into all the stuff that we're seeing on the TV. So somewhere there are lots of people who just go, can it please stop? So whatever happens in the elections in the US or any other country, I just want it to be done so we can go back to a normal life for at least another 4 years. We'll see.
And think context instead of content, because even though we might disagree, we can still be friends. And that, for me, I think it's the most important message that we can actually deliver on this show. Let's just say bye-bye to everybody and see you either in a new short flash from the Toilet Paper Diaries talking about the debate or next week. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Take care and watch out for the asteroid. Bye-bye.